Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Fronteras A Changing America. I'm Anthony Moreno. Over the holidays, many may travel to our local public lands to enjoy the outdoors. Joining us now to share some best practices and more information about our local public lands is Bill Wight, Public Affairs Officer for the Las Cruces District Office for the Bureau of Land Management. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Anthony.
I'd like to start off talking with you just really about the reach of your district that you serve here, the Las Cruces District. Can you give us an idea of just how big it is?
Well, the Las Cruces District actually encompasses 5.4 million acres here in southwest New Mexico, 6 counties. You have Dona Ana County, you have Hidalgo County, Grant County, Otero County, Sierra, and Luna County. So it's quite an extensive here. It goes everywhere along the southern edge of the Gila National Forest, all the way down through across the Chihuahuan Desert, Sonoran Desert, and Sierra Madre. Basically, I'd like to say all of southwest New Mexico.
How is it as a district office covering all of that land? Is it quite a challenge?
It is indeed quite a challenge, and I tell you, it has the most challenging portion because we have a variety of different people who have different jobs within the district. Our law enforcement, for example, I have 2 law enforcement officers that cover the entire 6 counties.
Wow.
So, you know, it is quite an extensive amount of land for us to manage and to cover. We have a lot of things. We have a lot of grazing. We have geothermal leasing projects, solar wind projects, recreation areas are for dispersed camping and things of that nature that are out here, as well as archaeological sites. So it is very, very extensive amount of area that we have to cover.
How big of a challenge is it to have the resources and staff with your department? Is that something that the entire agency is really dealing with?
Well, since COVID hit in 2020, you know, there's been quite an increase in the amount of usage of public lands, particularly on the recreation side of the house. We've seen the numbers increase exponentially. And there's become a kind of disparity link, you know, with recreations going higher, but we still have those resources and for human capital and budget. So the two have not yet to meet. So that's quite a challenge within itself as far as the conflicts on the usages of the land.
We're in a time of year where many folks are taking their vacations or leave and venturing to the outdoors. Of course, this time of the year, the weather is a little bit more cooler, so folks may enjoy the fall colors as well as they hit the trails. Can you talk with us a little bit about some of the most popular areas that visitors enjoy taking a trip to in our region in the Las Cruces District?
Oh, here within the Las Cruces District, you have one of the most phenomenal recreation areas, and you can see it right there's a good picture of it. That's the Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks. That's an actual national monument. The Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument incorporates 5 mountain ranges here within Dona Ana County. Dripping Springs Natural Area, La Cueva picnic area, those are very high usage areas. And we estimated so far, and when I say estimated, it's anywhere from about 225,000 people have already visited this year alone that we have been able to track, just in those 2 areas alone. On the back side of the Oregon Mountains, you actually have the Aguirre Springs Campground. There's 55 sites there for people to come and do dispersed camping or tent camping, if you will. Also within our district, out near Alamogordo, we have the Three Rivers Petroglyphs National Monument, which has so far seen anywhere from about 50 to 60,000 people already. And there's also dispersed camping out there, where you can see the over 10,000 petroglyphs. We also have the Prehistoric Trackways National Monument, which is here in Dona Ana County off of Interstate 25. And that is a unique place to go hike. Because you're actually walking on the seabed 268 million years ago. You can see some fossilized remnants of sea creatures in the rock that's embedded there. There's also the discovery site where they found the dinosaur remains, you can actually view those in the Las Cruces Science Museum. OHV, that's overland, with people with ATVs, equestrian riding, that's also available out at prehistoric trackways. And so those are the big recreational draws that we have here within our district, that we see a tremendous amount of people coming, not just locals, but from all over the state. And all over the country, as a matter of fact. We've got people who want to travel here just to see the Oregon Mountains Monument.
Certainly a lot of folks in Las Cruces and our surrounding communities are pretty excited about the National Monument and what it offers for tourism to our area. Local businesses have capitalized on that as well and incorporated it in some of their merchandise materials and advertisements as well. The city, of course, uses it as an attraction for tourism in the area. Having that National Monument designation, how does that change resources that are available for the public lands in our region?
Well, it actually gives us a lot more resources because it is declared as a national monument. There's more funding available to where we can actually be able to contract and get positions hired, more ranger positions and things of that nature. Here in the district, we're kind of challenged a little bit with the usage, like I was telling you. One of the things that we rely heavily on is volunteers. At each of our recreational sites, you have site hosts. And these are people that are retired. They want to come and stay with us for 5 or 6 months and live on site. They're volunteers. They run the visitor center. They become quite knowledgeable of our areas. It's almost like having a permanent ranger on staff. A lot of our volunteers clean up the trails. As a matter of fact, we just had a recreation dinner a few months ago, and we've got over 146 volunteers, and they put together over almost 19,000 hours.
Wow.
When you add it all together, and you equate that to the amount of money it would be for staff, and that's quite a substantial savings. So having volunteers helps us quite tremendously.
Just how are you doing with volunteer staffing? Are you always seeking volunteers?
We're always seeking volunteers. We just hired a new volunteer coordinator for the district office. So we're always looking for volunteers. If you want to drop us a line and send us an email, or come by the office and drop your name and put it on the list, because those site hosts rotate. They don't stay permanently for a year. They'll rotate some 90 days, some 180 days.
With those volunteer options, I know you also have opportunities for internships as well with the agency. You've had that in the past. Is there anything still happening with that?
We still do a lot of interns come through with our fish and wildlife departments. Our biologists come out. We have internships from New Mexico State University partnerships, Southwest Conservation Foundation, and there's several other different organizations where we get interns that come in and work with us as part of the AIM program. And they're valuable and tremendous in being able to go out to our wilderness study areas and doing cadastral surveys and things of that nature, which helps our staff to be able to further analyze how we're going to manage these wilderness study areas.
And it seems like a great opportunity for folks to get some professional experience too.
Oh,
for
yes.
those students.
We've had several people that have gone on. They've come and worked with us for 5 or 6 months as an intern. You get paid a small stipend, but you get that experience. They've got their college degree experience with that as well, and they went on to actually be hired by our office. And there's several that are still working there. Was a full-time government employee once they completed their degrees.
You mentioned the number of visitors that have attended the public lands in the region this year. What are some of the conversations happening in your office? What are those like to try to adapt to the growing number of folks? Like, how does your agency adapt to the growing number of visitors who are heading to the area?
Well, that's a really, really interesting question. We always value public comment. The Bureau of Land Management itself nationwide values public comment. We want to know what the people have to say, because it's not the BLM's lands, it's your lands, it's public lands. So when I talk to people and I say, come on out to your lands. This is your land. You own it. That's what I tell the little kids, the three and fourth graders in the Junior Ranger program. I said, do you know you own land? And their eyes get amazed when you try to tell them what public lands is all about at such a young age. But we get a lot of people that come through, like I said, from all over the country, and we take some of their comments. Our ranger staff is constantly out on the trails, and you meet a lot of interesting people. And I've actually met quite a lot of interesting people as well. Even some locals here that I did not know. There was a 90-plus-year-old woman who had ties to the Boyd Sanitarium building through her relatives, who brought the stone all the way across from the other side of the Rio Grande by wagon to build the sanitarium. So that was quite a unique conversation.
You're referring to an area in
Dripping Springs, yes.
Okay, wow, that's really something, and always fascinating to learn more about the history in our region and the connection many of our visitors and residents have in the area. Let's talk a little bit about what folks should keep in mind as they venture out into the public lands during this time of the year. We're not dealing with the triple-digit heat that we usually have to deal with during the summer. Now we're dealing with, winter weather and what may happen with that. What are some good tips for folks to keep in mind?
Even if we consider it to be winter, it's not what I consider to be a true winter. There's very little of that white stuff falling here in Las Cruces. But, the Oregon Mountain itself is a fascinating place to venture out onto. It is we're in a dry, arid desert landscape, basically. So you've got to actually be prepared. The best thing to do is know your plan. Have a plan when you come out onto the public lands. When you're going to take a hike, wear the proper clothing depending on the weather, and have a good pair of walking shoes or hiking shoes. Bring a jacket, even if it's in the summertime, because the winds here are notorious for being picked up at a moment's notice. Bring the proper gear if you're going to be camping, or dispersed camping, or tent camping on public lands. Make sure that you bring, staying overnight, you have a warm sleeping bag. Just check the weather. Be mindful of the drastic changes in the weather. Summer, it brings intense heat, and summer night temperatures can dip even to the freezing level. When it does rain, miraculously here in the district, you can get flash floods, so be mindful of that. Know your limits. Don't attempt to hike or beyond your ability, and most of all, avoid exploring alone. There's a lot of trails throughout here that do not have markings on them, and they're off. We have people that want to venture off and enjoy the public lands. We're not saying for you not to do that, but just to be mindful of and cognizant of where you're going. Drink plenty of water. The body loses fluids quickly in a desert environment. So, bring plenty of water and high energy snacks, and most importantly, leave wildlife alone. There's lots of wildlife that you'll see throughout your public lands, and just observe them from a safe distance, and what you carry in, carry out. Leave that no trace behind so other people can enjoy the lands after you've left.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider before you venture out on the trails, especially for those first-timers attempting to go and hike in our region. Your agency, the Bureau of Land Management, has partnered with an organization on a campaign, the Respect, Connect, and Protect campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about this and just how you think it could really make a difference and why it's needed?
Well, the Conservation Lands Foundation is undergoing a national campaign. This is their campaign, and we are one of the partners. We're one of the sponsors of that campaign. CLF is the nation's only nonprofit organization that's focused on protecting and expanding the national conservation lands. Now, they came up with, in response to the record number of visitors that we've seen since the 2020 and COVID, they've developed what I call a national digital edutainment, as they call it, strategy, designated through digital media toward the Gen Zs and millennials, because that is a niche that we're trying to reach, an audience to educate them about our public lands, because they're the ones that tend to go off into the unknown, so to speak, off the beaten path. And so we want to be able to make them, through this program that they've developed. It's a very unique social media type campaign to actually look and to remind them that where they're going, there's no water fountains, there's no bathrooms, there's no phone service sometimes. So you have a unique opportunity to connect with the land, but to do so in a safe way and enjoy the natural beauty. It's almost like an empowerment campaign, if you will.
I see.
And
yeah.
that's being run by the Conservation Lands Foundation, and they have their little spokesperson. It's a very unique little video. He's a spokespebble from way back in the Mesozoic area, and he talks about his little trips across the public lands. And so it's kind of a unique little campaign that they've embarked on, that the BLM is actually partnering with.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I want to move on and talk about something you brought up, and that was public comments and feedback. Just how essential is that to the mission of the BLM?
Well, like I said, this is all public lands. We're always looking for public comment. Whenever we do an environmental analysis, or I'll give you a prime example right now. The Oregon Mountain Desert Peaks, we're undergoing what's called a revising of our Resource Management Plan, or RMP. And in that process, we've actually had to reach out and seek public comment, because we're required to do that for 30 days. And then we take the comments back, we look at what their comments are, and we incorporate them into revising the plan, and then we have another public comment period. So we're always seeking information from the general public on how to improve how we manage the public lands.
I see. Now, one other thing that you all do is you have many partnerships throughout the communities, especially with events. Can you share with us a little bit about some of the events you may be involved with throughout the year?
Oh, we do quite an extensive amount of events, both internally and externally with our partners. Internally, of course, I sponsor a photo contest once a year. The winner of that photo contest actually gets their picture that they take on public lands put on our pass. So it's permanently on the district pass. We have led hikes. For example, this coming Saturday on the 9th of December, you'll have a community-led hike up at Dripping Springs by one of our renowned archaeologists. So we do community-led hikes to give people an idea of the history and what's available in the recreation areas. As far as our partners is concerned, we can't do a lot without our partners. It's the same way with the volunteers. We are heavily involved with the Monuments to Main Street progress once a year with the city of Las Cruces. This last year, we were fortunate enough to be able to tie in with the city of Las Cruces Water Festival, which had brought in almost 1,500 fourth graders.
Wow. From
Dona Ana County. And I was able to bring Seymour the antelope, our mascot, along with Smokey the bear from the Forest Service, along with my fire crews, and a couple of my wildlife biologists set up a thing to show what we set up out in the wilderness area, the water guzzlers for the wildlife. So we were able to educate the fourth graders on what the BLM has to offer. And then of course our archaeologist is there with his rocks and bones and things of that nature. So that's a very good community outreach. We're always doing community outreach. We have a new community outreach coordinator, and she does a lot of things with the elementary schools. We have several guided hikes and field trips for the elementary schools. Teachers actually submit the requests, and she goes and takes them out to, whether it's La Cueva, whether it's Three Rivers, or whether it's Dripping Springs. And she is about as busy as our law enforcement. So, you know, because she's an army of one as well. We do a lot of things with, you know, National Public Lands Day. For example, you know, we partnered with the Friends of the Oregon Mountain Desert Peaks, you know, because their organization assisted us during National Public Lands Day on the cleanup along the trail which runs along Sonoma Ranch Road. So there's a lot of things that we do partnership-wise, and events that we try to put on. We just recently had an archaeology day, which brought in a ton of partners with us. New Mexico Farm and Ranch Museum came out to assist with that. The El Paso Archaeology Museum came. We had the Fish and Wildlife for the state came out and set up exhibits and things of that nature. And then we involved the tribes. We had the Tortugas Pueblos that came out and helped us with that and opened up our ceremonies. So
wow.
It's a really big thing that we put on once a year.
You all are certainly busy. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Bill Wight is a public information officer with the Bureau of Land Management, Las Cruces District. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, we now take a visit to a local organization working to help improve animal welfare in our community by offering adoptable animals. Our senior television producer, Andrea Vasquez, shares more about the work of Action Programs for Animals in Las Cruces.
The organization started in about 2008, 2009. Michelle Mounier, who's still currently the executive director and founder, founded it then literally out of the trunk of her car. She would get donated dog food and give it to folks who needed it to feed their animals. You know, I think that's kind of always an amazing start considering where we've ended up. Action Programs for Animals is an animal welfare organization that also offers some rescue and housing of the animals that we do that. We need some help in the animal welfare world in this community, and we're here to offer that, as well as some of the other programs we have is the PAWS program. Now, I always say this is an unsung hero in our community. We cannot promote it enough. It stands for Prisoners and Animals Working Toward Success. And we, Action Programs for Animals, collaborate with Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility, which is on the outskirts of town. And we collaborate with their staff, and as well as the inmates. The inmates are trained on how to train dogs. So we're able to pull animals that maybe could be euthanized and house them there anywhere between 8 and 12 weeks so they get a temporary home. You think about there will be individuals that will never get out of that facility, that maybe they're there for life, but still want to contribute in a way. And that is very helpful to us. It's helpful to the community. It's helpful to the dogs. Another program we have is our pet food bank. So the pet food bank specifically is for individuals who may be in a tough situation temporarily, and they need support and help in feeding their animal. We have a cat side, and then we have a dog side. We also have a small dog area and a large dog area. And then we have what's called kitten season, which sounds great and fabulous and everything like fun. But the reality is that there are a lot of cats in our community and there's not enough homes for them. So we rescue our cats, and a lot of times what we end up doing is getting them vetted and situated, and then we transfer them to other rescues in other parts of not only the state or the country that is able to house them and get them adopted much faster than they do in our community. And one of the things that I hope people take from this story is that they recognize that we cannot adopt our way out of this situation in Doña Ana County. We just can't do it. There's not enough homes for the amount of animals that we intake or the amount of breeding that's happening without any kind of responsibility. Some of them have been here long term. We have one in particular that's been here, I believe, well over 2 years, and he has some medical conditions. We would love to find him a home that would take him, and we would support actually his medical care for the remainder of his life. He's a very sweet, sweet, sweet big boy, and so obviously sometimes that can be a barrier in certain homes if they don't necessarily want a larger dog. We have maybe a dozen dogs, and we have maybe a dozen cats, kittens right now currently. We would love to be able to open up more rescues, more opportunities to save more animals. We're desperately, but we are actively and constantly searching for fosters. We just don't have enough, and that is a way that I think many people can help. Some people maybe can't help, in terms of donations. The very first thing is to be responsible with your own animals, and that would include spaying, neutering, microchipping, vaccinating. That is the way you can start. Another way is if you see something, say something. So if you see an animal being mistreated, if you see an animal not being provided for, neglected, the significance of action programs for animals, for me, cannot be understated. I believe that our organization alone has greatly impacted the euthanization rate that our shelter has. Since 2012, 2013, we have saved over 6,000 animals. That is significant.
That's it for our program. Stay updated anytime with news at krwg.org. I'm Anthony Moreno. We'll see you next time.